Chapter 1. The Map That Brest. Harbor's Edge, Maine. October 28, present day. The ocean never slept in Harbor's Edge. Even on the calmest nights, it muttered against. The rocks below Cliffside Lane, a low, endless growl that seeped into every house. Every dream, every memory of the small coastal town that clung to Maine's rocky shore. Like a barnacle refusing to let go. Tonight the wind had teeth. It rattled the shutters of the old Thorne place like it wanted inside, or maybe like it wanted to shake loose all the secrets the house had kept for 3 generations. The Victorian stood at the end of the lane, weathered shingles gray as driftwood, paint peeling in long strips that curled like old parchment. Grandpa Elias had always said he'd repaint it next summer, but next summer never came. Now it never would. Alex Thorne stood in the front hall, sneakers squeaking on the worn pine floor. The boards were uneven, warped by 100 years of coastal humidity, and they groaned under his weight, the way old things do when they're tired of holding themselves together. The wallpaper, once a cheerful yellow with tiny blue flowers, had faded to the color of old bones, and in places it had peeled away completely, revealing older layers beneath, green, then red, then what looked like the original plaster. Water-stained and cracked. His mom was in the kitchen, sorting through stacks of bills and condolence cards under the single bulb that always flickered. She hadn't cried in front of him since the funeral, 3 weeks ago now, though it felt both longer and shorter than that. Time did strange things when someone died. It stretched and compressed, folded in on itself. One moment you were standing at a graveside, watching a casket descend into rocky New England soil, and the next you were back in your childhood home, packing up a life that had ended too quietly, too suddenly, with too many questions left unanswered. Her eyes were red-rimmed tonight. Alex could see it even from the doorway. Her voice came out thinner every day, like she was rationing words, afraid that if she spoke too much, something inside her might break completely. "Attic first," she said without looking up. Her hands moved mechanically through the papers, sorting, stacking, setting aside. "Anything you want to keep, take it. The realtor comes on Monday. We can't stay here forever." The words hung in the air like smoke. Can't stay here forever, as if they'd ever really stayed here at all. Alex had grown up in Boston, visiting Grandpa Elias only on holidays and occasional summer weeks. The old man had always seemed like a character from a story, weathered, taciturn, smelling of pipe tobacco and sea salt, with hands scarred from decades of fishing line and boat work. He'd tell stories sometimes, after dinner, sitting on the porch with the ocean muttering below, stories about storms that came up sudden, about fish that fought like demons, about lights seen far out on the water that couldn't be explained. But he'd never told stories about the war he'd supposedly fought in, or about the metals in that locked sea chest, or about why he'd left Boston as a young man and never gone back, except for his daughter's wedding and his grandson's birth. Alex nodded, though she wasn't watching. "Okay." He grabbed the flashlight from the junk drawer, the one Grandpa Elias had always used for night fishing. It was heavy, military grade, older than Alex himself. The handle was wrapped in grip tape that had gone sticky with age, and someone, probably Grandpa, had carved initials into the base. E.T. Elias Thorne, simple, direct, like the man himself. The narrow stairs that led to the pull-down ladder creaked under Alex's feet. Everything in this house creaked. It was like living inside an instrument, every footstep playing a note, every door a different pitch. The hallway was narrow, lined with framed photographs that tracked the family backwards through time. Alex as a gap-toothed kid, holding a flounder bigger than his head. His mom in her 20s, laughing at something off camera, her hair long and dark and free. His grandmother, a woman Alex had never met, who died before he was born, standing beside a much younger Grandpa Elias, both of them squinting into sunlight, the ocean a blue blur behind them. And further back, older photos sepia-toned of people Alex couldn't name. Thorns. Stretching back into history, all of them looking stern and solid and slightly uncomfortable, as if having their photograph taken was a trial to be endured rather than a moment to be captured. The ladder pull cord dangled from the ceiling at the end of the hall. Alex tugged it, and the hatch opened with a groan of old hinges and settling dust. The folding ladder descended slowly, reluctantly. He tested the first rung solid enough and began to climb. The attic smelled like salt and dust and time that had stopped moving. Not the clean, empty smell of an unused space, but something richer, more complex. There was mildew and old wood, yes, but also leather and tobacco, machine oil and mothballs, and underneath it all something Alex couldn't quite name, something almost metallic, like the air before a lightning storm. He clicked on the flashlight. The beam caught cobwebs thick as lace, stretched between rafters like nets meant to catch ghosts. Boxes were stacked everywhere, labeled in Grandpa's careful slanted handwriting. Fishing, 1994. Mom's books. College, war stuff do not open. Alex snorted softly at that last one. Grandpa had never fought in any war the history books mentioned, but he'd collected enough medals, knives, and strange journals to make you wonder. Alex had asked once when he was maybe 12 what war Grandpa had been in. The old man had looked at him for a long moment, pipe smoke curling around his weathered face, and said simply, "One that didn't make the papers, boy. Leave it at that." And Alex had left it, because you didn't push Grandpa Elias when he used that tone. He started dragging boxes toward the hatch. Old Life magazines, their covers faded to pastels, cracked lobster traps that smelled of long-dead bait and seaweed, a rusted sextant that still gleamed faintly when the light hit it, the brass compass rose etched with symbols Alex didn't recognize, not quite letters, not quite numbers, something in between. Then he saw the sea chest. It was shoved against the far wall, half buried under yellowed newspapers. The Harbor's Edge Gazette, dated from decades ago, headlines screaming about storms and elections and fish prices. Black iron bands circled the chest like ribs, riveted with thick bolts that had gone red with rust. Brass fittings had gone green with verdigris. Except where they'd been recently handled. There the brass showed through bright and clean, as if someone had been opening this chest regularly. The lock had been smashed open years ago. Someone had taken a crowbar to it and never bothered to fix it. The hasp hung loose. Bent, useless. Grandpa had always said the chest was just junk from the old days, but he'd kept it. Locked when Alex was little, and he'd never let anyone near it. Alex remembered being 6 or 7, exploring the attic during a summer visit, and Grandpa had appeared at the top of the ladder like a ghost, moving faster than a man his age should move, and had physically carried Alex back downstairs without saying a word. Just that look in his eyes, not anger exactly, but something colder. Fear, maybe, or warning. Alex's heart beat a little faster now. He knelt, brushed dust off the lid, thick dust, but with finger tracks through it, as if Grandpa had been up here recently, and lifted it. The hinges groaned, like something waking up. Inside, wrapped in oilskin that crackled when he touched it, a tarnished spyglass with a cracked lens, a small leather pouch filled with coins that had square holes in the center and symbols he didn't recognize. Not Chinese, not Japanese, something older. A compass that pointed northwest no matter which way Alex turned it. A knife with a handle made of some kind of horn, scrimshawed with scenes of ships and sea monsters, and at the very bottom, wrapped in faded red cloth that might once have been silk. The map. Alex unwrapped it carefully. The cloth fell away like ash. It wasn't paper. The surface looked like thin, pale leather, almost translucent when he held it up to the flashlight, warm to the touch like something alive. Not the warmth of Ambient temperature, but actual warmth, as if the thing had its own internal heat. Source: silver lines traced across it in patterns that made his eyes hurt if he stared too. Long, interlocking spirals, sharp arcs, symbols that seemed to shift and reconfigure. When he blinked, constellations, warnings, a language he'd never seen. He couldn't tell. The edges weren't cut clean like modern parchment. They were ragged, organic, as if the map had been grown rather than made. Alex turned it over. The back was blank except for a single line of text in the bottom corner, written in what looked like fresh ink despite the map's obvious age. For the next Bridgeborn, may you fare better than I did. E.T. Bridgeborn. The words meant nothing to Alex, but they sent a chill down his spine. Anyway. The flashlight beam struck the center of the map. The silver lines woke up. They didn't just reflect light, they glowed. Softly at first, a faint luminescence like bioluminescent algae in dark water, then brighter, pulsing with a rhythm that matched what. Alex pressed his free hand to his chest, his heartbeat, the lines pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The attic seemed to dim around the map, as if the rest of the world had stepped back. To give it room, the smell of salt intensified, the air pressure changed, his ears popped like he was ascending or descending rapidly, and for just a moment he thought he heard voices, not words exactly, more like the echo of words spoken in a language he'd never learned, but somehow understood on an instinctual level. Come home. The bridge calls. Your blood knows the way. Alex's breath caught in his throat. His hand, the one not holding the flashlight, reached out before he could think better of it. Later, he'd wonder if it was his choice at all, or if the map had somehow wanted him to touch it, had been waiting decades for this exact moment, for this exact descendant of Alex Thorne to climb into this exact attic and open this exact chest. His fingertip brushed the exact center of the map, where the spirals converged. The house bucked. Not a metaphor. The entire attic floor lurched like the whole building had been hit by rogue wave. Alex stumbled backward, arms windmilling. The flashlight clattered across the boards, its beam spinning wildly. Boxes toppled. The sea chest slid forward with a grinding screech. The map lifted off the cloth, hovering an inch above the chest on nothing but air. The silver lines flared white-hot, bright enough to hurt, bright enough to burn afterimages into Alex's vision, even when he squeezed his eyes shut. Wind exploded into the room. It came from nowhere and everywhere, cold, salt-laced, carrying smells that didn't belong in Maine in October. Pine forests after a thunderstorm, hot stones struck by. Lightning, blood and ozone, and something older, something that made the hindbrain scream danger and wonder in equal measure. Images slammed into Alex's mind like punches, bypassing his eyes entirely, projecting directly onto his consciousness. Floating islands drifting through a violet sky, massive chunks of rock and earth. Suspended on nothing, connected by bridges made of light that pulsed and swayed like living things. Waterfalls climbing upward into stars, defying gravity, the water glowing blue-white as it ascended into clouds that weren't quite clouds, more like solid things made of mist and thought. Cities carved from living cloud, glowing with inner light, buildings that grew like crystals, towers that spiraled upward for miles, gardens hanging in midair blooming with flowers he'd never seen, some with petals like stained glass, others that seemed to be made of pure light, still others that moved and reached and watched with something disturbingly close to awareness. Creatures with wings of glass and shadow wheeling between the islands, calling to each other in voices that sounded like music and breaking waves and wind through canyon walls all at once. Then the floorboards split. A jagged tear opened beneath Alex, blue-white and burning like the heart of a star. Not wood breaking, more like reality itself was tearing, the fabric of space-time ripping open to reveal something else underneath, Something that shouldn't exist, that couldn't exist according to every law of physics he'd learned in high school. Alex screamed, the sound lost in the wind. His arms windmilled uselessly. He grabbed. For the sea chest, for anything solid, anything real. The map snapped to his palm like iron to a magnet. He fell. Not down, sideways, through something that shouldn't have had a through. Colors that shouldn't exist bled past him. Purple bleeding into molten gold, gold into green so bright it hurt, green into shades he had no names for, colors that existed only. In the peripheral vision of reality, wind tore at his hoodie, his hair, his skin. His stomach flipped inside out. He thought he was going to be sick, or die, or both, or possibly something worse than either. Time stretched. He fell for seconds that felt like hours, or was it hours that felt like seconds? His sense of duration collapsed completely. He could feel himself aging and de-aging simultaneously, existing at every point of his life at once. Infant, child, teenager, adult, old man, dust, nothing, everything. Then impact. Soft, impossibly, absurdly soft. He landed on his back in grass that felt like the world's most expensive mattress. The fall should have shattered every bone in his body. It hadn't even bruised him. He just stopped, like the universe had gently caught him and set him down. Alex lay there gasping, chest heaving, staring up at a sky that had no right to exist. 6 suns hung in a loose cluster overhead. Not one sun, not even 2. 6 of them, each one a different color, one warm amber. Like honey, one rose pink like sunrise, one pale ice blue like winter sky, and 3 more. Shades he couldn't describe, because he'd never seen colors like that before. They existed outside the normal spectrum, as if someone had invented new wavelengths just for this place. A fractured moon drifted among them like a cracked mirror reflecting too many lights. It wasn't whole. It was broken into maybe a dozen pieces, each chunk rotating slowly, trailing debris that sparkled like diamond dust, but somehow the pieces hadn't drifted apart. They stayed together, orbiting each other in a slow dance that suggested some force other than gravity was keeping them coherent. And below the suns, impossibly below, floating in the air like the laws of physics were optional, were islands. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Floating islands. Some were the size of small towns, covered in forests and buildings and what looked like entire rivers. Others were mere boulders with a single twisted tree clinging to the top, roots wrapping around the stone like gnarled fingers refusing to let go. Bridges, made of woven light and solidified mist, connected them, swaying gently in winds that shouldn't exist this high up, if up even meant anything anymore. Waterfalls poured upward from the edges of one island and vanished into mist. Thousands of feet above, or was it below, direction seemed negotiable here. A city clung to the underside of the largest island Alex could see, white stone towers growing downward like stalactites, gardens blooming in defiance of gravity, tiny figures with silver hair moving between platforms on creatures that looked like foxes crossed with eagles, their wings leaving trails of light in the strange, multi-hued air. Alex's brain refused to process it, refused to accept it. This wasn't possible. This was fever dream, concussion, hallucination brought on by carbon monoxide from the old furnace, or some kind of gas leak, or footsteps approached, quick, purposeful. A girl crested the grassy knoll, about 20 yards away. She looked about his age, maybe a year older, 16, 17 at most. Dark hair, tied back in a messy ponytail that had mostly come undone, strands escaping to frame. A face smudged with grease and what might have been soot. Welding goggles were pushed up on her forehead, leaving red marks on her skin. She wore a bulky canvas backpack that clinked and hissed like it contained something alive, straps crisscrossed with tools and coils of copper wire and things Alex couldn't identify. Her jacket was patched with mismatched fabric, denim leather, what looked like metallic cloth that shimmered when she moved, sleeves rolled to the elbows, forearms smudged with grease and something that looked suspiciously like gunpowder residue. She stopped 10 feet away, hands on hips, studying him like he was a broken engine. She'd been sent to fix. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, taking in every detail with an engineer's precision. "Earth kid," she said flatly. Her voice had an accent Alex couldn't quite place, American, but with edges worn smooth, like someone who'd been speaking other languages for years. "You're early. Prophecy calendar said 300 years. From now, give or take." Alex blinked, his mouth opened. Nothing came out at first. His brain was still trying to reboot, still trying to find a framework that could accommodate 6 suns and floating islands and a girl who spoke about prophecy calendars like they were real, documented things. "What?" His voice cracked. He tried again. "What the hell is this place?" "Elysara," she said, waving a casual hand at the impossible sky, at the drifting islands, at the entire reality-defying panorama surrounding them. Floating continent cluster. Magic, mythical creatures, impending apocalyptic-level doom. You just portal crashed. The whole thing, congrats. She said it like people portal crashed into floating continent clusters every day. Like, this was Tuesday. Alex stared. She sighed like this happened every Tuesday. Right, new arrival shock happens too. The best of us. I'm Mia. Short for Mia Ramirez, but nobody calls me that unless they want a wrench thrown at their head. She paused, tilted her head. You got a name, or should I just call you the idiot who touched the forbidden map? Alex, he managed. His voice sounded small, distant, like it was coming from someone else's mouth. Alex Thorne. Mia's eyes narrowed sharply, her whole posture changing, going from casual assessment to sudden, intense focus. Thorne, as in Elias Thorne's grandson. The way she said it, like his grandfather's name meant something here, in this impossible place, sent another chill down Alex's spine. You knew my grandpa. Knew of him. Mia glanced over her shoulder, scanning the sky with the practiced eye of someone who'd learned to watch for danger from every direction. A distant roar rolled across the sky, deep, multi-throated, getting closer. Her expression tightened. He was the last Bridgeborn who didn't die horribly within the first week. Sort of. Long story, we don't have time for it right now. Alex scrambled to his feet, grass staining his jeans. The ground felt solid enough, but there was a faint vibration running through it, like standing on the deck of a ship. What's coming? Griffins. They smelled the portal breach the second you fell through. They're territorial. And they're fast, and they really don't like unauthorized entries. Mia's hand dropped too. A pouch on her belt, something inside glowed faintly orange. And right now you are very, very unauthorized. Shadows crossed the 6 suns, darkening the grass around them. 3 massive shapes descended from the violet sky, wings wider than school buses, feathers glinting like blades in the strange, multicolored light. Alex could see them clearly now. Bodies lion-heavy, massive and muscled, golden fur rippling. Eagle heads crowned with razor feathers, eyes like molten gold, fixed on him with predatory intensity. They shrieked, a sound that vibrated in his teeth and made his bones ache. Mia grabbed his wrist. Her grip was strong, calloused, the hand of someone who'd spent years working with tools. Run, Thorne, and whatever you do, don't drop the map. It's literally the only thing keeping both worlds from collapsing right now. Both worlds, what? Run. They sprinted toward the edge of the island, toward something Alex couldn't see yet, but that Mia apparently knew was there. The grass gave way to harder ground, not quite stone, not quite metal, something in between. The edge came up fast, and beyond it nothing. Just air, and fall, and other islands drifting thousands of feet below. And a rope bridge, thin as dental floss from this angle, swinging between their island. And the next, made of what looked like braided cloud and captured starlight, it swayed. In winds that shouldn't exist, creaking with sounds like distant music. Mia didn't hesitate. She leaped onto it, boots thudding on the misty planks that somehow held her weight despite, looking like solidified vapor. "Move," she yelled back, already 5 steps across. Alex's legs felt like jelly. Every instinct screamed at him not to step onto that bridge. That it wouldn't hold, that he'd fall forever into the void between worlds. But the roar behind him was louder. 3 griffins diving now, wings folded, talons extended like scythes. Their shadows swallowed the sun's. The wind from their descent pressed him forward. He jumped,